Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Swede Rolls. And the topic today is going to be railroading. I'm Chris.
I'm Toby.
And I'm Linda.
Welcome, Linda, to your very first episode here.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're quite welcome here. You're in my campaign, right?
Yes.
In the Changeling
Yes.
Game. And so let me start by asking a question. Do you feel like you've been railroaded in my game so far?
In the Changeling game,
Yeah,
we had one session.
that's true. But did you feel like you had any kind of freedom in that game?
Well, I kind of found it like to be a setting, to set the mood kind of session. So I didn't mind it. And I guess it was a lot of storytelling, setting the mood. And I assume it won't be as much on the next sessions.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. First of all, sorry for putting you in that position to answer that, but what I was going for
I
is
don't
that
mind.
it was supposed to be railroading because it's the prelude,
Yeah.
like you said. So I wanted to have like an experience for you guys.
Well, and you also explained it beforehand, so we expected it.
Okay, well, I did. That's good.
I
I forgot that I did.
I think you did.
All right. But let's take a little step back, and I want to ask you about your role-playing experience. What kind of stuff have you been doing?
Well, I've been role-playing since 2008, and I've mostly played Dungeons and Dragons for the first couple of years, and then also tried a lot of other games and also tried a few homemade games from the Gamemaster storyteller that we played with. Like 316 Carnage Among the Stars,
Oh yeah, I heard Luis mention that in a previous podcast.
Vampire the Masquerade, a couple of games, and Little Fears. That's really creepy.
A Little Fears. What's that about?
You play as children and you get taken into another dimension of just nightmarish terror.
Wow. Okay.
And you're supposed to like survive using your favorite teddy bear or your plastic wand of glitter
So it's like a
to defeat the monsters,
okay,
the
so
closet world.
So it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, except with kids and plastic.
And you don't have any powers. It was really scary.
Okay. So it's more of a combat-oriented kind of role-playing game, or
I don't remember. We played it one night,
Okay.
but it just stuck with me because it was really scary.
all right. And you've played Vampire.
Yes.
Did you play it before playing it with me, or? Was
I
it the
think
first
I've
time?
played 2 or 3 other games before I
Okay.
played with you.
Okay. What would be your best role-playing experience? If you could think of just one moment that was like, yeah, this makes it all worth it, you know.
It's difficult to remember one on the top of my head, but yeah, it was really difficult remembering something.
How about worst? That might be easier.
Worst is not a specific moment, but I mean several occasions where I made a certain type of character and never really got to use the things that character was supposed to be good at. That was, well,
That
it's
sucks, yeah.
just a bit boring.
Okay. Thank you for answering those questions. If you can think of a good memory, just interrupt the conversation and say, "Oh, I came up with it." But railroading. When you think about railroading, what does it mean to you?
When I think about railroading in a role-playing game, I think about the GM or storyteller already have like a script similar to a movie script, and they want certain things to go in a certain way until we reach the end. That's what I think when I hear railroading. And you don't really have much space to explore this way or that way.
Yeah. Toby, do you agree with this kind of image of railroading?
Well, it all depends on what the GM defines as railroading, because their tracks can go different ways.
What do you mean with that?
Yeah, well, there's always, when I've roleplayed before, there's always some options, but they usually take different turns. So I'm not really great at railroading because the group went on different areas, but we always came to the desired location in the end by a long ass journey or something like that.
Personally, I feel like railroading, just like you said, like you guys mentioned, is when the GM has a set course for the game. One of the biggest problems I've experienced is that I think one of the biggest causes for railroading is when the GM and the players don't actually talk about the game outside of the game. Have you guys experienced that? Like you go to the game and the GM hasn't told you anything about the intention of the game.
Most of the games I've played have been like that. It's just, okay, we're going to play Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition. Create your characters. And there's no instructions or anything like that. That's also why many of our groups have had, you're played as an individual in a group.
Has been a kind of a dysfunctional group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because with no guidelines to what you're supposed to create or how you're supposed to relate to the other players, sometimes it's difficult to find a motivation to why am I hanging out with these
that's
people.
the eternal group problem in role-playing games. Why would my character be with these characters? Like, we've all been there, right?
Yes.
Like, there's no in-character reason for these people to hang out. But yeah, I think, like you say, if you go to a game and the GM just goes, you create characters for playing Dungeons and Dragons, someone might want to play a sneaky character in a city setting, someone might want to play a ranger, a dungeon crawler. I think it's a communication problem mostly, and different expectations. For example, when I GM'd Vampire with you guys, it was we were playing a pre-made adventure, and those are generally kind of railroady to begin with. Well, very railroady, because they have like a beginning and an end, right? And sometimes they might offer up a couple of different ends, depending on what the players achieved. But there's always the kind of sense that you have to give the players an objective to achieve. And in games that you play yourself, you're more flexible as a game master. If you listen, like we talked about in a previous podcast, you listen to the players, you take it in, and you kind of make it about them rather than the game being about the game and the players trying to fulfill it, right? Vampire, in a way, for me, felt very railroady as a GM because I had a very narrow idea of the setting. I had what the game offered me, and I had Transylvania by Night, which was a supplement that I could read to learn more about the setting. But there was this idea of what was going to happen, and we were going to play Giovanni Chronicles later on. We were supposed to make new characters, the children of the previous. And Giovanni Chronicles is, I'd say, even worse, because in those games there's stuff going on. I'm going to spoil it now because we're never going to play it.
No, it's okay.
But there's stuff you have no control over as a player that's happening. There's a diablerie going on, and there's clans being destroyed, and you as a player, you're just standing there going, okay, I have no control over this at all.
That's a scenario I would like. Okay, I'm going to go live in this castle dungeon now.
Yeah.
And go to.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to even witness this.
Let's wait 100 of years and see if it gets better.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's a very good story, but for an adventure, it's very limited to what the players can do. And with Changeling now, I just sat down and created a city. That's what I put most of my energy into. And I feel, at least I hope, I conveyed the idea of what the city is like to you guys when you played.
I think so.
Oh, that's good. I mean, it's in the 80s, so you're back in the 2010s, the 2016, yeah, so it's going to be very different from how you left it. But I felt like it was more important for me to create the feeling of the city in you guys. So when you come back to it, when it's different, you're going to have this contrast to what's going on. So starting next session, I have a few events planned out, but I don't have a path of what's going to happen. So it's going to be scary for me. I haven't GM'd like that in a long time. I'm hoping you guys will have fun.
Just try it. We're going to be nice.
Yeah, I've realized that you as a group are very laid back and easy to work with. And that's sometimes stressful because I'm like, I have this high expectation of what I need to do. And you guys are like fine with it anyway. So I think a lot of GMs also have that kind of problem, right? Like you are so focused on giving the players a good experience. And you kind of set up this schedule of what's going to happen. And if someone breaks the mold, you go, oh shit, they're not going to have all the fun that I planned for them because they're going to go off and have fun with stuff they want to do. So you try to keep them in a box so they have all the fun that you planned for them.
Well, to me, it sounds like you are a very controlling person.
Oh, really?
And
What would give you that impression?
Yeah, so It seems to me that you are trying to make a box for your fun that you want to share with other people.
Yeah, I guess that's a pretty accurate description of it, really. Like, I wouldn't say my fun, but my idea of fun.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but if they go outside the box that you've planned to let the other players have fun...
I don't know if they will have fun.
Exactly, so you suddenly get a rush of stress or something like that.
That's almost probably definitely it, to be very non-specific. But yeah, I agree with you. That's one of my biggest issues, is that I'm always constantly worried that people are having or are not having a good time. And if I don't know what's going to happen, I can't guarantee that there will be a good time. So it's like, stress. It's definitely something I need to get better with.
Well, probably not now.
No.
When you're 70, that's the time.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go have a dungeon crawling adventure. But I feel like, for example, if you're a new role player, like if you're inexperienced, would you say that railroading is a better thing to do?
I guess it depends on what type of game you're playing. Some games are rules heavy.
Like Dungeons and Dragons, for example.
I mean, there's dozens of books to look through to find fun perks to have to your character and cities and powers and everything. So, I mean, maybe railroading could be good to just try out the rules, but also it could just as easily work with no railroading at all. And just, here, you're in a tavern, try it out.
Yeah. I think that kind of has to do with the expectations too, right, from the players.
I guess
if you have a railroady kind of adventure, Dungeons and Dragons, dungeon crawling kind of thing, everyone knows what to expect, right? And they don't have to put in too much effort into figuring stuff out. You're just having a good time. It's like playing a board game.
Yeah.
Right? But if you want to have a game of intrigue and mysteries, railroading would be very difficult to have in those kind of situations. But yeah, I think for inexperienced players, it might be hard to act outside the box. Right.
Yeah, but I still feel somewhat of an inexperienced player because we haven't played a lot of the same type of games and the same type of settings, not really adding much on the next game with the same people also. So it's difficult to break out and try something in a different way. I've always found it difficult to role play to another player like a conversation.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's just I can say I want to do this and roll my dice. So
yeah, it's kind of awkward to interact with someone as if you're someone else. Yeah. And I guess if you put it on a kind of a board game level, it gets less personal, right? Because you can pretend to be that character when you're talking to the GM. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, even I've been role playing for over 20 years, and I still have a hard time, especially with people I don't know, to fall into the role being someone else. As a GM, that's a terrible problem to have. And I can tell you, every time I have to be an NPC, something in the back of my head goes, oh shit, I hope this is over soon so I can become a Christian again. It's very stressful because you're being someone you're not used to being. I don't know, Toby, you're looking at me like you don't have that problem?
Well, I certainly do have problems with if there's anyone new in the group that I don't really know that well. I usually tend to be more quieter because I don't know how to interact with that person because I haven't felt what's the distance I can go with this conversation and such things.
Yeah, and there's so many different cultures and groups, right? Like some groups are very physical, some groups are not. So it's hard if you're new in a group, yeah. But for me, for example, when I've made, we talked about NPCs in a previous episode, and I sometimes made very detailed NPCs. I'm like, this is going to be a major character in the game. And ultimately, the players kind of end up not liking them because they take up too much space. And I think that's an important lesson as well as a GM that, you can't have too good of a relationship with your own NPCs, right? Because then the players are going to be like, okay, are you GMing for yourself or for your players? It's a difficult balance because like when we played Vampire, for example, you had your ghoul with you. And I feel like I could have played her way more than I did. I barely played her. I didn't even play her.
Well, I was emotionally attached to her.
Yeah, and then she fucked you over.
Yeah.
I actually rolled a die for that. What happened was that maybe you want to tell them.
Yeah. Well, I had my ghoul that I took care of because she's my human, kind of.
Exactly.
Well, she just helped me with day stuff and was there and then just suddenly she has been the one to leak information to the were-rat and caused one of the other players' characters to die.
Excuse me?
Yeah, the were-rat incident.
Oh, right. Yeah, we went through that in another...
Yeah,
And so there was an NPC who said, "Oh, that girl is the one to have leaked the information." And I was like, "Well, no, that's my human. She doesn't do that. She's loyal to me."
Right.
And then someone used discipline on her to force her to tell the truth. And she told the truth, I guess. And I was like, damn it.
And that was...
and then I killed her.
Yeah, you killed
Because, yeah,
Did you chop off her head or burn her? I don't remember.
I drained her.
Oh,
Either
you
way
drained
is
her blood.
fine.
Yeah. No, it's very important. I have to know. How did you kill her? I had to create a mental image. No, but NPCs are sometimes tools, right? We established that before. And sometimes they can be very intrusive. If we, for example, take Mother from the Changeling session.
So damn scary.
Yeah, I put a lot of work into her. She was my railroading tool. Because when she arrived at the party, maybe I should describe the scenario.
Yeah, sure.
Basically, I created a character. It was a she. She was a fae, or one of the true fae. She was dressed in like a wedding gown, kind of made out of oven paper, the butter paper kind.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, and she had a mask on her face, like you could see that there was something beneath it.
Yeah.
And she had like a porcelain mask with closed eyes.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say tinfoil.
Not tinfoil, no. But she
Okay.
had an apron on, and I mean, she was known as Mother. She called herself Mother.
I kind of imagined a queen bee
Yeah.
with the beige brown paper dress and tiny waist
Yeah,
and
exactly, like
the
the
white
50s
face.
American
It was like,
housewife.
yeah.
And she had the song that accompanied her, which is "Oh Superman," if you've
What?
heard it. It's a very grating kind of song. It's very repetitive and very psychedelic. And I kept playing it during the entire session. The true Fae and Changeling, the Lost, are omnipotent, pretty much. So she just went into the party and she kind of froze time.
Yeah.
And she just walked up to each of you. The players were the only ones who could move. But you
I tried to run.
You tried to run, but she just came up to you anyway.
Well, it was like a nightmare. I
Yeah.
ran and didn't get anywhere.
Yeah. And she just came up to you and touched you and poof, you just disappeared. And she did that in turn to each player while they tried to run away. I was kind of happy with the reaction from the players there.
So no one sat there and embraced it?
No, actually not. I don't think anyone did anyway.
I don't think so. Maybe
Yeah.
Louis' character.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So how
The one who
old are
summoned
these
her.
characters?
17? I think.
Okay, so they weren't drunk enough to not run away.
No. Well, they were running away, but they couldn't get away. 'Cause
Okay.
She just followed them and
I had a cup of
Right.
spiked punch.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, one of the
Before.
players spiked the punch
Yep.
too.
What? Oh, God. Okay, fine.
But essentially, because it was a prelude, I kind of had to railroad the whole
Yeah.
thing. So I felt like it was a very, very long story session where you had very little input in what was going on.
Well, I could do some things. I could refuse to say, in this family we help each other.
Yeah, that was the thing. She would say that, right?
Yeah.
In this family, we help each other. And if you didn't repeat it, she'd slap you.
Yeah.
And your character, Jenny, the donkey,
The donkey.
she never said that, right?
Nope.
Not once.
Not once.
Because she got turned into a donkey. But it was a really interesting character, actually. And I like that you added that piece of uniqueness to the story, with the way you acted. You didn't just go along with the flow. And I think maybe like if I'd been more railroady, I would have just forced you to say it. Yeah, I think it really added to the game that you just...
I think I would have
Never once.
refused more. Just because I imagined that prom night to be the breaking point of going from this, I'll do as every adult tells me, whatever they tell me to do, I'll do it because I have no will of my own and no future aspirations. So that prom night was supposed to really be the breaking point. That just, no.
You're not going to take it. You're not going to take it anymore. Yeah. There's an interesting little thing. We had all the players send in songs their characters would like. And your character, Jenny, she sent in the Twisted Sisters, We're Not Gonna Take It. And I thought it was a really nice touch to your character. I'm looking forward to seeing her being played more because I feel like most of you guys made a very, very accomplished, interesting characters. It's going to be scary, definitely, as a GM, going in there with just a few ideas of NPCs in my head. I feel like I have the ability to do this because it's not a competition either between you guys and me. It's not like I'm in charge of the monsters and you're the players and you want to kill the monsters. Because I know one of the biggest problems with those kind of games is that you get a lot of argument over the rules in the game. Have you been in a situation like that?
Yeah, of course we argued about the rules a lot of times. Some arguments are based on that you don't like the system that you're actually playing and you want to change it, so you house rule certain things, and then it's difficult to keep track on what's house ruled, and I can't look it up in the rule book and things like that.
That can be a problem, like if you have different ideas of what kind of rules you're playing. And that goes back again to the different expectations, I feel. Because when we sat down and we made the characters, we did it together and we kind of settled on a theme, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very important when you make the game, so everyone knows where we're starting out. And which is why I thought it was very important that when Martin came in later, because he made his own character, that we at least sat down and talked about our characters before we started. So everyone, knew who he was playing and he knew who you were playing.
Yeah.
I also think that if you have another player joining, if the story is too narrow, if it's too much in a box, it's very hard to work another player in. So I'm very glad that we could all at least be together at the first session, so we could all have an impression of each other.
In a box.
In a box.
In a box.
Exactly. But that was a prelude, so it's supposed to be in a box.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to trying to roleplay a lot with the other characters, because the characters in Changeling now, they don't really have a relationship with each other. And now we have been through the Fae world.
Fae world, yeah. Or
together,
Arcadia.
Arcadia, and, been through weird stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting how we relate to each other when we're out.
Yeah.
When we're back in the human world.
It's going to be interesting. I felt like Louise didn't agree with you, actually, when we talked. She felt like you didn't have any reasons to be together after. But I felt like that kind of experience, like, even if you don't like each other, you're the only ones who've been through it.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about it because I really want to make a connection with the other characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like now we're back, like 30 years later.
Yeah.
Our existence doesn't exist, kind of.
You're replaced.
So whatever we meet now in the next session, when we probably are going to explore, like, okay, I want to go home to my parents.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to that house and I'm going to see something else.
Yeah.
Maybe they're there, maybe they're not. And then I'm like, okay, where's my place? I might go back to the parking lot and just wait for the others.
Yeah. I've been thinking about next session a lot because, like I said, I don't have much planned, and I intended for that because I want you guys to help me create the city as it is now. And that's also a hard step for me to take, to, relinquish the control of the setting to you guys. But I feel like they're your characters' backgrounds. Who should decide this but you,
Yeah, we as players have to take responsibility to kind of build our group.
Yeah.
If we want to move forward, because I really want to try to have a group play sometime. It's a lot of individual play, as I've experienced earlier, and also sometimes you just make a connection with one other player and that player has connection with another one, so we're tied together but not as a group.
Yeah. That's one of the risks, I feel like, if you don't have enough railroading. Okay, I'm going to defend railroading in the way I feel like if you have a very set purpose for the group, I don't know if that's railroading or not, but let's say that you say, okay, everyone's going to be playing a crusader, so you make your crusaders and you've been crusading for 5 years together. That makes it easier to have a group that meshes, rather than going, okay, you're all vampires who live in roughly the same geographic area.
That is a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly.
When I roleplayed, Jesus, it's been like 2 or 3 years now since I roleplayed last.
Really?
Yes. It's been a drought. When we were planning on new campaigns and such, we always got like, okay, this is the setting, we're going to go through this kind of a storyline. And then it's like, do your characters. We always end up like discussing each other's characters in Hangout or something like that, or just speak over the internet to get to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah, it's really important to know the people you're playing with too, like what kind of way they play. I feel like, for example, when I was a player, we would constantly have new characters in the group. People would not be happy with the character they made. And I think a lot of that came out of the fact that the characters just didn't mesh. You played so different characters. And of course, we were so young at that time that we just made another super unique snowflake character that didn't work with the rest of the group, and that didn't work, and you just kept repeating. It's a game, right? It's not real life. It should have some kind of purpose. It's so much easier if you have a group that wants to cooperate, right?
Yes. It's a lot easier for the GM also.
Yeah.
Because you can find new things that you know are interesting to the entire group.
Yeah. Toby, I know you have played a little bit online, Linda, but Toby, have you role-played online at all?
No, not at all.
So it's a very different beast.
It is a very different beast, but then it also depends on if you're talking about text or speech. I have never done it in text because I'm worthless at typing and reading at the same time. So, no.
But I mean, microphone is also different from role-playing in person because you don't have body language for one.
Exactly, and that's probably one of the parts that I like most because I really like to articulate with my whole body when I speak, and then everyone notice that I'm saying something that the character think is important.
Yeah, a lot of times people who don't like to take attention to themselves or have trouble with that, it's even harder if you're playing voice online because you can't give the subtle body clues that you want to say something or
no, exactly. You just have to like cut in conversation and say what you're gonna do or such.
So you had to be kind of a tight group or a small group for that to work.
Yeah, I don't think you can be more than 4 people. That would be
hard to manage in Skype. Yeah. But Linda, you've been playing on Facebook, you told me?
Yeah, Facebook Messenger.
Oh, and that's interesting because I never considered that a medium for role-playing, but tell me a bit about it.
Okay, so the LARP group I'm with right now, we have a group chat at Messenger. And sometimes just when we feel like it, it's not timed, it doesn't have a storyteller or DM, it's just today in the village I went to hunt a boar and it went well. More descriptively, but...
It's kind of like character interaction, right? You just role play for the heck of it.
Yeah.
That's a phenomena because that's very common online. Like I just haven't seen it on Facebook, but I've been doing that stuff on Skype and on IRC and
MSN.
Yeah, MSN and the other one, AOL. What was it called? Instant Messenger.
ICQ.
Yeah, ICQ. Stuff like that because character interaction, that kind of role-playing, was almost non-existent before the internet. Because like role-playing informally with other GM. And that kind of throws the whole railroading out the window, right?
Yeah.
Because then you don't really even have a purpose other than to develop your characters.
Yes, and develop the relationship between the characters.
Yeah. Which is super important. And that really helps to strengthen the group.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. But GMing online is very hard.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with it is that it's very hard to not railroad online, in my opinion anyway. Because, for example, I've played Dark Heresy, the 40k game. I played it online for 5 years, the same group. And we'd end up in situations where we're like, okay, what are we going to do? And because of the limitations of text and because of... people were doing other stuff. We had an out-of-character conversation for 3 hours on what we're going to be doing with the group. So that was not role-playing. That was just us talking about possibilities of what to do. As a GM, I can imagine just sitting back and watching that going, okay, fine, I just wasted 3 hours reading what you guys wanted to do, and you didn't settle on anything. I feel like we were occasionally in that situation when I was younger, when we didn't really know what to play. But it's very hard to have complex role-playing in text format because it's harder to jump between players. It's harder to have a conversation going in a game, in a text-based game, because you write something and then you wait for the person to respond, and then you write something and you wait for the person to respond. When you're role-playing like this, you can show with your body that you're listening. You can have longer monologues. You can
even raise your hand if you want to intercept without interrupting.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can interrupt.
And you can interrupt.
Yeah. What you bring up is a really good point, that you can call for attention, but you can also interrupt the GM and like punch the villain or whatever. But you have no idea what the villain is going to say until he's actually said the whole piece. So it kind of breaks the rhythm if you then go halfway through that, I punched a bad guy. It's like, okay, but you still saw what he was going to say.
Exactly.
So it's very hard to GM online. And I also feel like I've been playing a Pathfinder game. I'm talking a lot now, so you're more than free to interrupt me here. But I got into huge fights with other players' characters because of like ideas of morality and stuff like that. They reacted really poorly. Like they got personally offended and upset because they'd never stopped to consider their character's idea about this because they just made a character. So apparently I'd been insulting their view on the world because my character was upset with this kind of thing.
Okay.
In real life, that would have been more easy to spot. Like, I can tell that you're angry. But I couldn't tell that they were actually angry until afterwards when they just left the chat. And that's if you have a very simple dungeon crawling adventure, you don't get those problems online. And if you make a group that works.
It's a question of, it depends on which group, which game, how you want to play, what you want to play, online or a living room. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's important, like we established, to have some kind of cohesion in the group, to have some kind of common reason, and like you said, play as a group rather than play as individuals.
Yeah, I think also as storyteller, you can always encourage that with, okay, she just did something. What do you think about it? Or what do you do? And
that's really good advice. I should take that to heart because I feel like when I GM, like Toby brought up before, I'm very bad at letting go and letting you guys interact with each other and letting you guys create stuff for others to interact with, because it kind of feels like I'm taking away your what's the word? Your
freedom.
Freedom is blunt, but I was thinking more like ability to act.
Yeah,
you only react, not act.
Yeah, but also it's easier to react. And also, I'm curious as to what story you have in mind. And I want to go along with that because I know it's hard work to come up with a story and plot ideas.
But I also think it's rewarding for a GM to get input from players. Because I think, for example, like I said, if you want to go back to visit your parents, maybe you already have the seed of an idea of what might have happened in these 30 years. And I'd rather hear that, because that would be like your idea of what's cool. And we could even brainstorm about it during the game and be like, okay, this is what happened. Sure, it wouldn't be completely in character, but I think the end result would be way much better than if it was just me deciding everything.
I already have a few ideas in mind because I'm thinking I could decide what happens with my family and decide what I see. I haven't decided on exactly which of the ideas I want to go with.
If you figure out a clear idea or the examples, you should bring it up. Because I think it also helps me as a GM to take some load off my shoulders because I have 5 players and I have to kind of keep everything in mind. I think because we're creating a story together, right? And I think that was a problem with Vampire, that it was you guys were going through this story that was already made, whereas in Changeling, I'm hoping for a story that would be something we make together.
Yeah.
Those are always the best games, in my opinion. And I know, Toby, when we played some Vampire, you created a lot of NPCs around your character.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
But let's not go into
No, let's not go into that part. That's a whole different chapter. I'm sure you agree that when there's a kind of creative energy between both players and GM, the end result is good, right?
Yeah, it's always great for the player to help the GM to make up new characters or such things.
Yeah.
But I think we have to end the episode there.
Oh, wow. That was a good place to end it, though.
Yes.
I'm very happy that you came, Linda.
It was fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you had fun. Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
No, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be.
That's true.
Everything is bad in my opinion.
Well, you mean that's because you're a glass half full man, you know?
Yes.
Or half empty, I mean. Half empty.
That's rather, my glass is always empty.
Yeah, wow. Nice way to look at life.
Yeah.
But before we end it completely, did you think of your best role-playing memory?
Well, at least one of the most recent one. It's the Vampire game we had before I played with you. And I was playing a Ventru computer person.
Programmer hacker
thing. And I really went into the game really trying to be a Ventru leader for the group.
Yeah.
I really wanted to be the power hungry. I want to be the one making the decisions. So I kind of took that role, and then I went a bit manic.
Okay.
Because things didn't go as planned, and I wanted to make a good impressions of the hierarchy over us, which was all other players, all other NPCs. And when things didn't go as planned, I went manic and I jumped on a car to try to catch
Okay.
a person that we were after. He drove around the block, went out, and then I got smashed.
What do you mean?
He was a ghoul,
Ah.
and he beat me into torpor.
Oh wow.
That's oof.
That's a good memory.
Yeah, but it was an awesome moment.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, yeah, you were on
I-
a car and.
Yeah, I jumped on the hood of the car, went with him, and then tried to use dominate. It didn't work.
That's cool. I think those are valuable
So
memories. Yeah.
yeah, so that started an even more manic period until it led to my death.
Oh, well, I mean,
I agree with the decision because yeah,
you got
but
kind of
it-
crazy,
yeah, but it was fun playing.
and that's really the point of the game, right?
Yeah.
To have fun. And with that, we're gonna say goodbye.
Yep.
And until next time, keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Thank you for listening to Swede Rolls. Your support means the world to us. The music you heard playing at the start and the end of this episode is Fireside Tales by Darren Curtis. The intent of this podcast is to discuss themes and issues in all manner of gaming, but primarily focused on the RPG genre. If you have any comments or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Pay us a visit at swederolls.com, where you can also learn about the people doing this podcast and more. For our Let's Play channel, check us out at youtube.com/Swede_fighters. And until next time, keep rolling.